In today's live stream, we are going to be talking about how a solo private practice that is very successful does not automatically equate to a group practice level of success. And so, if you are a licensed provider, you know that you want to either have your own agency, maybe you are a clinical supervisor, or that is something that you are looking forward to in the future. And you can foresee that you may even want to oversee the clinicians as you give them clients, then this is the right episode for you. And so I'm going to treat this as a masterclass. If you are new here and you like content around how to grow and expand beyond one on one therapy, then you definitely want to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and go ahead and chat it up with me in the comment box, whether you are watching live and or later. So let's go ahead and jump into it. I will be sharing my screen and I'm really excited. And I have some resources for you that I've pinned in the description box, also that I've pinned to the comment section. But let's go ahead and share the screen and get excited because I know that this topic stirred up a conversation when I posted a very short carousel over on Instagram a couple of months ago. And so let me go ahead and cue up my screen. And let's do what I do best, which is teach, okay? So that we can shortcut any type of learning lessons, AKA mistakes, that somebody may make when they're growing their business. And so let's talk about the season because it's not even the time, okay? It is a season of when I lost approximately $50,000. And I'm going to be breaking down a lot of the things that I wish I knew before building out my group practice of 8 clinicians, team of 10 with 2 administrative assistants, and then eventually 1 clinician. You'll hear about it. I end up hiring into a higher role. So, like I said, a successful solo practice, whether you base success off of your clientele, your amount of people in your caseload, your schedule, the amount of money you make, it does not automatically mean that you are actually ready for group practice. And so I started my private practice right after I got licensed over 13, 14 years ago at this point. And my solo private practice had never been the problem. Now, I will say, in an account to where I used to work for the juvenile correctional facilities, and then also anywhere where they took like state paperwork, we were heavily trained on documentation. And, quality assurance has always been my strong suit. So, with that said, it wasn't a documentation problem. The problem was that I did not yet understand cash flow beyond myself. And so I also did not understand how payroll worked and all the fees, and not just the system like Augusto. And I also did not understand team infrastructure as it related to cash flow. So this was not like one random mistake. I do want to make that clear because sometimes we want to get better and we say, oh, if I just fix this one thing. With an agency, with a business that is forever growing to get more revenue, to get more clients or customers, there will always be problems in business. You will not escape them. I don't care how many classes, how many templates you have. One problem will always present another. And so, oh, sorry for that. It's a little cut off. And so I did not fully understand what's called employment taxes and employer responsibilities. And I truly underestimated like fees related to payroll, entities, systems, and operations. And so, what I started to do is I was paying therapists or choosing price points like I'm the therapist. Put a 1 in the comment box if that makes sense. So I would get into my head and say, well, how much do I think as a fellow psychologist that this person should make in my practice if I were going to work at somebody else's group practice? The problem with that is I was not pricing how much they would get paid as a business owner. And so I was paying people before ultimately all the money had actually reached the business. And so I was asking, like I said, if I looked at a therapist and they were postdoc, okay, how much would I have liked to get paid when I was a postdoc, considering that, yeah, it's a business, instead of what can this business sustainably afford? That is key. You can actually ask yourself that for private practice. You can ask yourself that for your home as well. Sustainability is key for business because you want to keep your doors open. So I want to break down some money math. I know y'all like numbers. And so therapist math and CEO math are different. And so when we see things through the clinician's lens, like the person who is delivering the service, we start thinking about what feels fair in terms of what I'm paid, what I want to be paid. I see this come up with clinicians right now in their practice, whether it be, private pay, insurance, third parties, they are focusing on me, me, me. And while that is fine, you have to understand that if you do W 9 or your entity structure and then your W 2 and yourself, there has to be another set of questions. But again, looking deeper within, then we think about how do I make this attractive for therapists if you're the business owner? You're focusing on the therapist and only the therapist. There's nothing wrong with considering the therapist. Okay. So through a CEO lens, you have to look at what are we actually collecting, by when, how much, frequency, what does support cost in time and in money to support the person that I'm bringing on? What margin remains, AKA profit? What margin remains after I've distributed payroll, including the fees associated with payroll, which we'll get into, taxes, fees, and then, of course, what's most important that I see group practice and supervisors underestimating is time. So you have to understand, even in a solo private practice, revenue is not cash flow. Think about revenue as a title, and then cash flow is a verb. It is doing something. Okay. So the money can be earned in your private practice, but sometimes we distribute it before it's available. And this was part of my group practice reality that I found out later. Okay. So this is where cash flow really got real for me. And I was just like, oh, shoot. And I had figured this out after it was already a problem. So one is I was doing veteran assessments. Now, I came about this through a company contacting me and local psychologists in the area. You have to be a psychologist in order to get this third party contract. And they wanted me to do one time only veteran assessments where I would meet with the veteran in my office. They definitely filled my caseload to the point where I was able to see upward of 15 to 20 veterans if I wanted to a week. But here's the catch: you have to see the veteran, let's just say Monday. Then you have to turn in the final report within 48, I think max maybe 72 hours. I can't remember, but I know it was definitely max 3 days. Okay. And then what happens is when they review it and then they accept it, the third party, then when they send it off to the VA for whatever they're going to do with the assessment, that was out of my scope. Then that's when the clock starts ticking in terms of us getting paid. So that's the context. Okay. So I started hiring postdoc students because I still love to teach and train, but I wanted people who had some skin in the game. And I knew that psychology doctoral students, they had already completed 1,500 to 2,000 hours, not like 250, no shade, but they had a lot of hours beyond research. And so when the therapists came in under my supervision, they actually had to complete reports a lot quicker than I had to do myself. Okay. So this is where I want you to start calculating your time, because for you to see a client and do progress notes, you know what you're doing. So you do your progress notes, you write up your intake, you do your treatment plan, probably all in one day if you can. But when you train somebody, it's a lot of back and forth. So imagine if the intern postdoc, they got the veteran seen on Monday. They then type it up that same day. They then send it to me by a cutoff time on Tuesday. I review it. Of course, I've done thorough training before they get their first veteran. And then once I review it, if I have any edits, which became more of a timeline issue, this is why you want to vet who you hire to see if they're even responding to your hiring emails in an efficient manner. If people are dragging their feet, that is a problem. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw this in here because I know that my clients, my community is going to see this. Some of y'all may be watching right now. When I talk about time management, you have to look at how you're showing up as an entrepreneur and business owner. If you are dragging your feet to communicate with your team members, with your coach, with someone else, that same behavior is going to be passed along, or you will attract what you are and who you are in your business. So I see sometimes, therapists complaining about their supervisees not doing paperwork, not doing all these things. And then they start laughing, especially my mastermind clients, because we talk about group practice and things. And they'll start laughing because I'll be leaning in on a Zoom call and I'll just be smiling. And they be like, "What you smiling about?" I'm just like, "This topic." And it's almost like they know me so well where they'll start doing some self reflection. And that's when they realize, like, Oh, damn, I ain't even did all my paperwork and I'm sitting here chasing somebody to do their paperwork. Boom. Right? And so I'll do one of those. They were like, oh, goddamn, kind of thing like that. But at the end of the day, don't expect somebody to do something for you if you're not doing it for yourself. Okay. So, bottom line is the reports had to be then sent off still by the 72-hour time frame. Okay. So, in order to be accepted. So, think about that timeline. If I can do it, I'm probably done in 2 days. If a postdoc does it, they're probably taking the whole 3 days. Okay. I see. So someone said, pot talking to the kettle. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So moving on. Payroll does not wait for reimbursements. Payroll does not wait for insurance. Payroll does not wait for copays. Payroll does not wait for assessment evaluation payments or delayed payouts or brand deals, whatever you have going on in your business. Okay. So, this is where I started to get into some hot water within myself. So, money came in, money went right back out. So, here's the thing, if you already have this problem in your private practice, what makes you think that hiring people is going to make it better? It's not going to cover up your problem. So, for me personally, I'm not a big advocate of leaving your 9 to 5 job, especially prematurely going off based off hope. And yeah, faith is great, but faith ain't gonna drive you to big results if you can't even show up the same way that you want to show up when you go full time, part time. So I was still working at my 9 to 5 job plus overtime. I had my own private practice clients and I kept them. Okay. I was using my private practice profits, and I call all my private practice money profits, to be honest, from my client caseload when I paid myself through payroll because my 9 to 5 job was enough. Okay. So I built, yes, a lot of people don't know this. I built my group practice with a team of 10 working a 9 to 5. Context matters though. I was recently divorced. I had a lot of time. I had no children. I had just purchased a home. It was big for me by myself. I was there by myself with my 2 dogs. So you have to consider your season with what you're able to do. I'm just keeping it a buck with y'all. Like some people like quit their job, go open up a full-time private practice, all these learning lessons. And while they're in the learning lessons, then they go open up a group practice, or better yet, take on the livelihood of somebody's internship hours. That's not ideal. You want to go in stages. So I was using my own private practice profits to keep the group practice moving. You can probably guess between the lines what that meant was that if we were waiting on reimbursements from the VA, but California state law states that I have to pay people in my business during certain increments of the month, once or twice a month, then I don't have a choice but to come up with the money. They've already done the work. So the business was growing, but the cash flow was not there yet. Okay. So systems for me are not systems for a team. I mentioned that earlier because what works for you does not mean that it's going to be deliverable for a group of people. So that was one of, for me, the biggest mindset shifts. So my foundation was not weak. I know some people say, like, oh, well, maybe if you would have done this in your solo private practice, not necessarily. So I understood organization and documentation from a structured clinical setting. I worked in jail settings. I worked for the county of what was it? Contra Costa in Northern California, Medi-Cal paperwork, if you know Medi-Cal, Medicaid, Medicare, that paperwork is intense. And then Southern California, Los Angeles County. So I had a very good understanding of what is a clear process from inquiry of services or assessments to treatment or assessment completion. I knew exactly what was supposed to go in it, and I created systems, which is what I teach to in our Dope Therapist Academy. And then we follow the system from the client's inquiry of treatment to the end. I also knew, like I said, how to teach and train clinicians really well. I am a very thorough and good teacher. We had steady referrals. Referrals were not the issue. So when we look back in hindsight, I want you to start thinking about what are some things that I could have changed. So referrals were not a problem. We had word of mouth referrals, VA assessments. We had referrals for insurance panels for those who were licensed in my practice who could take insurance. We had a percentage of private pay clients and just people spreading our name in the community. So where clients were not the issue, the veterans clearly came because you need to know where your clients come from in a group practice. You need to know where your clients come from in a private practice. So veterans came through the VA and word of mouth. Licensed providers received insurance and private pay referrals, plus veterans if they were a psychologist. Events created. I was a speaker because I wrote a book on couples, mature conversations, mature relationship conversations. So that book turned into visibility for me. But I would mention that I'm a group practice agency owner. And so it helped send clients to my practice for those who wanted individual therapy. Okay. My book also created couples referrals. And then what would happen is during my assessment with couples, while using my book, I would determine if they need to clear individual baggage. And then if they were open to it under one house, they can see, maybe one of them can see me, another person can see another clinician, and we actually pause family or couples counseling because it ain't gonna do no good if they have individual baggage. Or they see me for couples simultaneously, maybe every other week, once a month, until they clear their baggage with their individual therapist, if that makes sense. So here is what, when we come together as a team, here is what I consider our structure, our rhythm, how things flow. So if you want to supervise pre-licensed providers, I don't care how long they've been in the field, you still need to train them. So pre-licensed clinicians received weekly supervision. Depending on how many I had at a time, because I did 1 to 2 hires at a time, we used individual and group supervision depending on the team size. The more we had, the more it made sense to do group, and then people would get individual based off of what is happening on their caseload. Licensed therapists, then later we built into our group system consultation. So we eventually invited the pre-licensed providers in there, but ultimately what would happen is every other month I would provide, like, pizza sandwiches, fruit, drinks, and we would meet at a round table in my private practice office because they have a conference room. And on Saturday, oh no, on Sundays for 2 hours after church, but every other month, we would do about 30 minutes administration talk, like any updates, things they need to notify their clients of, when the office is going to be closed for the holidays. We award people, we give people their kudos for hitting their goal of client caseload, all the things. And then second is we talk about things like training requests, caseload openings, and then client needs. And so we valued in my group practice people having a say so with who's going to be on their caseload next. And what we saw was that some clinicians only saw kids, but after they got enough kids, they realized, I actually want to see some adults. So we said, okay, well, you do some of the consultation, so just take the adults that you want. So my systems did not fail. I am a systems coach, so I'm really good at it. My understanding of cash flow failed. Okay. So fees are one thing, time is another. So sometimes when we look at investing in scaling our business, we only look at money. So I'm going to use the example of mentorship and coaching for myself. If I'm looking for a coach, or when I was looking for a coach, in the beginning, it was, can you teach me something to make me move fast? But AI was not like it is now. Okay. And then everybody wasn't online either. So then the next phase was, okay, I know this information, or I'm familiar with this information. So now I'm paying for time. What does paying for time look like? Paying for time is, I no longer want to watch 10 YouTube videos to figure out one answer that then somebody's conflicting upon in the next video. I like your teaching style. I like the results that you have in your business and your life. And I like the fact that you are 8 to 10 steps ahead of me, whether it be revenue, lifestyle, mindset, anything in between, or all of the above. And then lastly is, I want somebody to help me reach my results faster because they have a process, a framework that is really important. So if you are looking to invest, like what we do in all of our programs, we have a step-by-step process, whether it is for a specific stream of income, like supervision, therapy groups. We have execution lists, guides, Excel sheets with journal prompts to help you flush out your thoughts. But then when it comes down to private practice, we have a 5-step process, BRAND. And then we also, for scale, have a SCALE like process and framework. So when you're building a group practice, you need a process and framework for bringing on new team members and then sustaining them. So let's talk about it. Payroll and employer costs have to be part of your math. Software, all of it. EHR, expanding of it, because people underestimate that fee until they start hiring these therapists. Administrative support. You cannot run a group practice. I would not want you doing it by yourself, but I see a lot of therapists doing it. And entity costs at the end of the year or when you file add up. Okay. So supervision and training time are also part of business costs. Now, of course, we may not count every single moment that you are doing it, but most of the time, this is where I see therapists with time underestimate what it takes to do something in their business because you're only basing the time off of you by yourself. And so you want to consider How much time do I think, because you don't know right now, how much time do I think I'm going to need for veterans to review reports, to look at documentation for even regular clients, quality assurance? I need to carve out time every single month to make sure all of the billing has been submitted. When we have a billing department, I still need to meet with that person and make sure they don't have any questions, that we don't have any lingering claims or lingering copays, or, you know, people ghosting sessions and not paying they no show fee. Like, we need to talk about that. I am now a CEO, manager, and psychologist and supervisor. Those are four different hats. But when I started, I was also the marketer, the bring referrals in. Okay. So these things have to be accounted for. So when you take on the role of a group practice owner, I love it, but you got to understand, and this ain't for the weak. You become the person everybody in the business needs. Every leg in your business will need you in the beginning. And in the beginning, group practice owners often hold every majority seats if we're looking at an org chart. Okay. So when you're looking at group practice cost, and we're going to break all of this down. I have a group practice readiness masterclass coming up next Thursday. So while I'm introducing the topic right now, we are going to go a lot deeper in a actual specific readiness, whether it's 6 months, 12 months, 24 months for a group practice. If you're considering it, then I really want you to grab your seat for that masterclass. It is going to be on replay. So once you invest in it, you will get the replay 2 days later. Okay. In a core shell. So it's digestible. So when you look at the price for the session, you want to look at calculating the time it takes to supervise, like talk to the clinician, train them. You want to calculate the time it takes to review whatever clinical work and documentation. You want to calculate training, documentation, marketing, and management time. Like, problems are going to come up, you need to talk. So you also want to calculate the cost of being the person who fixes the system when it breaks. When they call you, when you're out of the office, and you have to train them what is an emergency or what is not, you have to attend to the emergency when you wear the hat. So most group practice owners underestimate the time cost before they underestimate the money cost. You think about the money cost later. Okay. So it was, for me, the 50K, the review and supervision load that got me. So number one, veteran assessment reports, like I said, required very meticulous, careful review. You don't want to keep getting rejections because you don't want them to not start sending you veterans. Number two, training and feedback for me and the staff had to happen very quickly. Number three, the team needed clinical support and administrative clarity. Number four, my schedule expanded because the systems that I even built depended upon me, and so did the people. So once I noticed that this was a problem, I still could not find a therapist coach for group practice at the time. I did find a community, but it was more of us being there for one another, not necessarily someone's systems that we give in our mastermind. So I looked at promoting within. I really believe that if you build a good team, people in your team will probably promote a lot better if they want it, compared to you starting from scratch and getting somebody from the outside. So we had a clinician at the time where she came in pre-licensed as a psychology postdoc. She was working on passing the exam. Once she passed the exam, she already had a full caseload. She did bilingual mental health treatment. So that was a plus for our group practice. We had a very diverse group of colorful women, all 8 of us, right? From master's level social work to marriage and family therapy, and then postdoc psychologist, and then licensed psychologist. So once she was able to get licensed, we were able to put her on veterans. From there, she learned the veteran system with me, training under me for, I'm sorry, she did it postdoc and then she did a license. We were able to do that for about a year. Because she was a very good writer like myself, had been well trained. She had also worked in a big organization for the state and had all the same paperwork experience that I had, working in different places around California. I asked her, hey, have you ever thought about supervision? And she said, I thought about it, but I need to look into the CEs. So I'm like, go look into the CEs. I'll pay for them. And so she went and took the CEs. She got certified. And then I trained her from the supervision perspective, what I look for when I review the reports. So it was almost like I was training her. And then the third step was she then trained someone else, but I was still overseeing her, if that makes sense. And then at some point, I cut the umbilical cord once I realized all the reports were going through, just like mine. We were good. We were getting paid, all the things. Okay. So that is what starts saving me time and money. So what changed when I had help? She supervised and supported several, like 4 at a time. When I took 4, because we can only have 8 at a time, she took on 4 pre-doc and post-doc clinicians. I continued to support the remaining therapists in the practice, along with a handful of the veteran clinicians. She understood those assessments, and the decision helped me recover approximately, y'all, 10 to 15 hours per week. That's a win. 10 to 15 hours a week. Okay. So I see, yes, to keep the main job to support you to build the practice. So we got you. You have to understand that you're working with a system that needs to be built beyond the threshold of you. Okay. So, like I said, I believe in promoting from within when that person does have the skill set. Okay, like to learn more. And they also have the interest. You don't want to force something on somebody. You don't want to say, oh, this part of your job description because you did not like it when somebody did take that to you at a 9 to 5 job. They will put certain things under your job description as other. And you like, I ain't getting paid for this. They said, yeah, it's under other duties. Okay. And also, I trust her with the system. Okay. So, what I would do if I were in your shoes 90 days before hiring either your first or your next clinician in group practice. And this is the part that I wish when I've met all of these therapists, especially in our elite coaching mastermind, I wish that I would have known this. And then I wish that they would know. I mean, they know it when they find me to slow down and assess first. So, my first move would be a money conversation. Okay. So, one, I would meet with a money person, like a CPA, bookkeeper, tax professional, hell, all three, if they are different people, and the appropriate business professional earlier. I would talk through goals for the company before hiring. Goals would be how much do I want to make at the end of the year? How many therapists do I want to hire by the end of the year realistically? What do I have the capacity for? And all those things. Based off of your goals, they will be able to ask more questions. They should. So then you want to map out, I know you can't see it, but I'm going to read it out. You want to map out what's called state fees. That's why you want to talk to a CPA or tax professional because your entity structure will shift. Let's just say if you're doing, I learned this the hard way. You may have had to incorporate, like as a psychologist in California, because of, for me, tax liability, I'm making more money even on my own. I have a MPI number as a psychologist, but then when I convert into a group practice, there's another tax ID. There's another MPI number. There's another entity structure. I just can't call the IRS and say, flip me into the other one. It doesn't work like that. You are separate than the business. So you want to map out any fees like the annual fee in your state, quarterly taxes, entity structure costs to start it, to maintain it every year, payroll costs, employer responsibilities, and reporting requirements. Again, we're going to break all this down in that masterclass. You also want to understand what remains after the real cost of support is deducted. Okay. So even though you may not physically pay for time, you have to understand that time is going to be equivalent to energy and capacity. What's the point of making all this money if you don't have time to live a life? Okay. So I would not only create, when you're hiring a clinician, a 30, 60, or 90-day, we call it probationary period, onboarding plan. I would also create a 30, 60, and 90-day cash flow plan. So this is what it could look like, what I wish I would have done, and what I ended up doing when I did a rehire for more clinicians once some people graduated out. So how many clients or assessments for veterans can this one therapist that I'm about to hire realistically complete 1, 2, and 3 months out? You got to think about the training period, the onboarding period, like they're going back and forth with you, if they're licensed, putting them on insurance panels. But that's why veterans helped us out because they didn't need to be put on a panel. It took all but maybe 14 days to get them approved. And then number 2, when will the business actually receive payment? Like I said earlier, our VA payments did not come in until 45 to 60 days after the report was accepted, not submitted. What will I pay before the money arrives? Well, what are money going to come from? That's why I said you need a nest egg. I've met a handful, not a lot, of clinicians who start building a group practice and they're on a drought. Like there's no way I will be struggling to pay myself first and then I want to bring on somebody else. I'm not playing with somebody else's livelihood. Okay. Where will the payroll money come from during what's called the 30, 60, and 90-day ramp up period? Okay. So the 10K, let's just say if you're like, I want an additional 10K a month from clinicians, the $10,000 initially that you want may not exist at the beginning because there's an onboarding period. And so revenue projections are going to be really important because they are not the same as payroll deadlines and readiness. you will have to run payroll within 14 days of hiring that person, them signing on the dotted line. Where is the money coming from? It's coming from your nest egg or your pockets. So give yourself time to build. I tell our clients, which is why our mastermind is intentionally structured for 12 months at minimum. And most of our clients do at minimum 2 years. It doesn't mean they focus on the same stream of income for 2 years, but for a group practice, they give themselves time so they don't have to rush out of another stream of income because building it takes time and money. Okay. So if you are not opening a group practice soon, great. I'm with you. Right. So give yourself 12 months if you can. Use that time to decide first what type of therapist do you want to hire, because that's going to determine the documentation, the entity structure, the pay rate, all those things. You also need to stack money, stack cash. You need to refine and expand your systems beyond what a one-on-one therapist is going to do, because now you have to build it for somebody to be trained on it. So we start that process in the Dope Therapist Academy, because if you don't have documented systems for yourself, you're not just going to upright get up and create them for someone else, because you just told me you don't even want to make them for yourself. So having somebody wait on you is not going to be a external motivator as you think it is. It's actually going to put you under stress to the point where you may become a not cool boss and then the person doesn't stay. Okay. You also want to strengthen your supervision and leadership skills. Let me be clear. Supervision is not an automatic skill that you have as a clinician. I am pretty sure at least, I don't know, I'm gonna throw out a number. 50% of therapists that are licensed, 50% of them did not have at least one group of supervision experience, meaning at some point in their training or at some point when they got licensed, they had a job. Somebody as a supervisor sucked. They just had expectations, no training. They wanted you to turn around stuff, but they weren't even turning around, information. Okay. So that doesn't come naturally. Take the CE workshops for the certification, take the classes if your state requires it. But I would recommend that you try to supervise without needing to take on the liability of giving a clinician clients maybe one or two before you actually do a group practice. That's what you can also do in those 12 months. And guess what? When you open up your group practice later, you can then ask those clinicians, do they want to get clients from you and be rolled over? But they then have to understand that they are now your employee and all those things. So every level has pros and cons. So I hear I hear the most nastiest, I'm gonna be real, attitudes around, oh, well, no pre-licensed providers. Well, at some point, somebody gonna have to supervise them. Okay. So there are pros and cons to both. When you have newer therapists, I think of it like a kid, you can mold them, but you do have to do basic training. You do have to do more direct teaching, because the school only teaches up to a certain point. They rely on the agency that employs the clinician. So if you want to be a private practice that just does supervision, or a group practice that does supervision management and give them clients, you want to understand that you have now become their training site. There is no if and buts around it. Like, you are the training site. Okay. So you have to provide more support and around documentation, implementation, application, and professional development. If you're like, I don't have the capacity to do all that, okay, that's cool. But it ain't gonna let up on the season side. Because on the season side of clinician, there is one big con that I see the most. And I seen it when I was even hiring. The more seasoned clinician, it's kind of like an adult coming into therapy. You're set in your ways. Oh, well, this is how I did it at my job. This is how I do it in my own private practice. They're not working in their own private practice. I'm not saying you talk to them like that, but you wouldn't believe the things that I've heard and seen from people coming into somebody else's establishment just because they've been in the field for 20 years. Okay. So they do have, on the pro side, more experience. They have more habits and preferences, though. Okay. They also clearly need onboarding, expectation training, and leadership, and additional training to work in your company, not in theirs. So if you hire pre-licensed providers, you are not just adding labor. I just want you to be aware of this. But if you love to teach, you love to train, this is why we do it. Okay. You are becoming a training site. So a very small step may be wiser. And I'm going to walk you through what this can look like. If you have never supervised clinically or administratively, because you may have been an administrative supervisor at a job site or something, okay, that may or may not have anything to do with mental health, start there. Consider supervising, like I said, 1 to 2. I say 2 so that you can compare experiences from those clinicians to start. Give yourself 6 to 9 months to learn your supervision style. What type of interns do you want, or licensed providers do you want if you're a consultant? Use that information before deciding whether group practice is the right next move. Now, I'm not saying you have to do this, But I would highly recommend that you start there if you're building the group practice infrastructure in the background so that you can start practicing that leadership muscle. Learn how to lead one person, maybe two, before you rush to lead. We coach clinicians where one of our clients, Teresa, she had a team of 13. Our client, Janelle, I know the last time she texted me a couple months ago, she was at like 11 or something like that. And so we have clinicians from our mastermind that are popping, but they used our step-by-step systems and they used the whole 12 months to build it, no rush. So keep in mind when you have a business structure, you do not want to bring other people into your chaos, an organization. So a clinician, think about it, pre-license or post. A clinician is entering into your world, your ecosystem. Is that ecosystem organized? If I gave you a clinician right now, pre or post license, or for assessments, or just for supervision only, would they be organized? Actually, if you're watching live, could they start tomorrow? Do you have the onboarding and training keyed up? Not you're going to go create it tonight. Do you have it available? So another question I always ask any private practice owner, solo or group, is if you had to step away from your business for 4 weeks straight, when you come back, would it still be standing? And a lot of people's answer is, I don't know. It wouldn't usually be no because you would contact your clients, but depending on your clientele, some of them can't wait 4 weeks to see you. Okay. So, what would still function without you? This is where you want to start because this is where you start fixing stuff. Would clients still know what to do if you put them on? Like I put mine on a maternity leave when I was out for a couple of months. Some of them went to a fellow therapist in my group practice, while the others, they were with me for a couple of years, so they took a break. Would clinicians still receive supervision or consultation? Oh, you didn't think about that. We actually address that in our coaching programs, though. Like, how do you set up a substitute? Okay. Would billing and documentations still move? Would people know when everything is due? Because nowadays, the EHRs, we use SimplePractice, we train as SimplePractice, but when you submit the billing outside of needing to sign off on it for a supervisor, it typically notifies the billing department to do the next step. So if somebody's late on notes, this is what you want to train on. When you are late, our system is late. When our system is late, like you can't say our payroll is late, but you do want to tie it to cash flow. Okay. What would your administrative team or your VA know what decisions they can make without you? You want to be able to build a system where somebody's not calling you when you're out of the office. That's horrible. Okay. So these are all the reasons why I created my group practice readiness masterclass. So my goal is to slow clinicians down and you not rush. I want you to get help with expanding your knowledge around group practice readiness. What I teach is not in AI. Okay. You can also not AI my experiences, but I can share them with you. I do more storytelling time on my podcast so that you can see different variations of how things have worked or not worked. I'm very transparent with that. But I'm also tired of seeing therapists rush to scale. And then as soon as I start asking in like our private practice boot camps, like, oh, are you ready for grow or scale? They do them scores and they like, I'm still in grow. And there's nothing wrong with that. It is called awareness. But wouldn't you rather prepare for scale than just turn over in the bed tonight and say, I'm a scale tomorrow? I'm just going to go ahead and do all these things. So these are some of the 7 readiness areas that we're going to cover in that masterclass before you make your first or next hire. So we're going to cover vision, why group practice, and what role do you want to play. We're gonna drill down on all of these, and capacity, where CEO time will come from. 3, leadership, how you train, supervise, correct, and support. You're going to get resources. You're going to get an execution and implementation guide when we are done. Okay. 4 is we're going to talk about organization. What are the roles, tasks, admin, billing, and client experience? And then 5, financial, hiring, and onboarding readiness. Okay. So those are just a few. So who that masterclass is for. So ideally, because I don't want you to waste your time or money. Okay. So you have a solo practice and or a group practice. You want one in the future. You supervise maybe now, or you may want to supervise in the future, and you may want to give that supervisee clients. This is a desirability masterclass. Okay. So you already maybe have hired 1 or 2 clinicians and your systems low key feel messy. You feel like you can't step away. Number 4, you want to understand what you are signing up for to build and add for clinicians. Okay. So the investment right now is $47 for the live. Then it'll be available in a Course Shell Masterclass. Okay. What's going to happen is once you sign up, you will get access to a confirmation email and your receipts. Please keep your receipt. You are growing your business. This is psychoeducation. Think about it like a CE workshop. Save your receipts and give it to your tax person. Anything that I do in masterclasses, please say, some of y'all ain't saved your receipts. What are you doing? We sitting here talking about cash flow. Okay. So turn those over. And it is a masterclass to help you grow or scale your business. Okay. So when you get two emails, you're going to get another email that says granted access. The granted access is we house our courses, our master classes for replay purposes in Kajabi. So if you don't have an account with us, it'll be whatever email address you signed up with. So I always recommend, if you've had stuff from me before, use the exact same email address that is in your Kajabi vault. That way, when you log in from your phone or the desktop, laptop, everything is there. Okay. When you log in, the masterclass has not happened yet. It's going to be next Thursday. The replay, because it's going to be 75 to 90 minutes, the replay will be chopped up into digestible pieces. So for example, if I'm covering the 7 readiness steps, odds are you're going to have 7 sections. Okay. That way you can listen to like a couple of minutes at a time and then do something in your workbook or execution sheet. Okay. So the replays will be available within 2 business days. So if it's happening on Wednesday, Thursday, then it's going to happen 2 days later. You'll get an email saying, hey, all the replays are available along with your execution guide. Okay. But go into the portal because it has some videos that are directly related to group practice that are already sitting on YouTube, just so that you can, get used to the way that I teach, but also just learn a little bit more. Okay. So it's going to include what's called a group practice readiness blueprint, like guide, so you can continue deeper work after the masterclass. Okay. So that link is pinned to the comments. It is in the description box. It's also in the link in my bio on Instagram. Okay. So you do not have to be ready to hire tomorrow. I want to make that clear. We're not rushing anything, but you do need to know what you are preparing for. And remember, as a group practice owner, you are an agency. Okay. So I want you to assess every step of the way with any stream of income. Assess before you expand. Most of the time we start private practices out the kindness of our hearts and because we desire to do so. And then some people do it because they're trying to escape from their job. But I don't want your entire business career to be like that, where you're just constantly running. Okay. So grab your seat for what it's called is From Solo to CEO Group Practice Readiness Masterclass. Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Was this helpful for those of you who popped in for either the whole time or a portion of the time? Put a yes if it was helpful. But my goal here on this channel is to provide business education for mental health providers in the areas of operations and growth so that you can have an abundant life. Like, I always tie things into your lifestyle, because we are not teaching clients how to live their best life and then we turn around and we're not living ours. Believe me, I've lived it. And don't you worry, I got a podcast coming up that will pull back the curtain a little bit more, where I'll be sharing some things that I have not shared in public so that people can understand that people's reasons as to why they start a business and pain points and obstacles that they go through while building and scaling a business. Just because we don't share it publicly when it's happening or right after it happens doesn't mean that we're not struggling. And like I tell my clients, stop comparing somebody's trauma. Like, just because you got a big bag and they got a little duffel bag don't mean that your trauma bigger than their trauma. Everybody experiences it differently. Okay. So I'm glad that you found it helpful. Make sure y'all save y'all spot for the masterclass. We're going live next week. If you cannot make it at that time, it is okay. Still get it, because then you will get the replay right away. All right. I will talk to y'all in the next podcast episode, and I will see some of you all or all of you all